So, just gonna be basically pulling a diff today. Just kind of going over all the steps, functions, of everything necessary to pull a diff. So we're gonna open up with 32mm, pull the rotor off, well, the axle nut. Just kind of do the same on each side as we go. At that point, we will, on this hub, we're going to pull these 14mm brackets for the brake caliper. Just use a ratchet for this. And just also have zip ties or something of the sort ready to pull off your brake caliper. You don't want to put tension, unwanted tension on those brake lines. Just gonna wear them down a little bit faster. I'm not meant to hold weight. So give me two 14mm here. One's going to be on the top of the knuckle, and one's going to be on the bottom of the knuckle. They have their own little arms just for that bolt. Not high tension threads by any means. Take them off, keep them in a memorable place. And get our zip ties, and we will be taking zip tie, run it through the bolt hole of the brake caliper bracket, and I'm just going to tie it into the strut assembly here. Kind of, maybe. I can do it. If I can do it. Yep. Now that your caliper is hung, start working on pulling your rotors off. Make sure you do not set your rotors on a hard abrasive surface, but it should be pretty straightforward. Yeah, if you have any issues with like strength or anything, you can also take the tie rods off beforehand. It makes it a little easier to rotate the wheel hub. The same way I've done it every time I've ever done a differential. Down to a science at this point. It can also be done without a lift, obviously. It can be done with one person, which is very, very nice. It's a little bit difficult. It's not really a beginner level thing, but anybody can do it really. It's just about knowing what to look for, knowing what to do. We got it first try this time. First try. I'm gonna grab my impact gun, put my 14mm on it. We're gonna start taking the strut bolts out. So remember how your bolts go in and how they come out. It does matter when it goes back together. So the head of this bolt here for the bottom of the strut will be facing outwards towards the bumper, and the nut will be facing towards the floorboards of the interior of the machine. You can honestly do this all with hand tools. Power tools definitely make it a lot easier for your life and just for your mental sanity. But I still prefer using hand tools for most of this stuff. One thing we're going to have to remember is to be pulling the sway bar linkage just out of the top of the arm right here. It's going to be a 17mm. Sometimes it'll start spinning once you get to a certain point, at which point you are going to be taking, I believe it's a 15mm. Put it on a little plate on the back, meant for it, meant to hold a 14mm, just so that you can get this to stop spinning and ultimately pull it out. You pull it out, just take it, loop it back up around, put your washer back on, nut back on so you don't lose it. Very, very important. And just, yeah, pull it like that. Now you basically have fully independent suspension. Yeah, okay, so now we're going to start working towards tie rods and lower ball joints. So for this lower ball joint, it's going to be a 22mm. I'm going to use a 1/2-inch Milwaukee impact for this. Put it right there. Comes right off. And so, the fun part. So, we have special tools here that not everybody has, designed for taking ball joints apart on side-by-sides. Takes a lot of force to separate these most of the time. So much so that I recommend putting the nut on until it's flush with the bottom of this stud, because it will pop out. Not so much on the ball joint, more so on the tie rod where it has so much more a lot more flexibility. You're supposed to do this with wrenches. I'm not going to because I am yeah. Should put gloves on as well. So now that we have this in place, we'll be able to put our fire spreader. Oh, it's underneath the chair. Done. Going to take the half-inch gun and place it popped. So we're going to run this back out, pull it off. If you do not have this tool, the hammer will work just as well. Just make sure that you definitely do have a nut on there so you don't just tear the threads off, you know. That's going to end up being a bad day. We're just going to go over, do the exact same thing on the other side. Like that for the lower. I'll demonstrate the hammer on a tie rod. Now it's right out. Usually takes a little bit more force, but that's a baseline of how you get that done relatively quickly. Where did I put my 19mm? Huh. Might put it away. But now we're into our tie rods, which this is just so we can kind of open this up and we can get this axle out of here. So we're just going to get this flush with these threads. And I'm going to smack with a hammer. Absolutely right now could be using my tool. Just want to demonstrate how it can be done. We're just going to take a big hammer. It's out. Sometimes they get a little bit stubborn. You can do the same thing that you can do on the sway bar links. There is a wrench. I do not remember the size of this wrench because I've never actually had to use it, but I do right now. I believe it's a 19mm open end. So we're just going to grab a 19mm open end. Try that. Okay, no, it's like a 21. Holy. Yeah, might be a 20. I think it's a 21. I'll have to do that on the opposite side. It's not a huge inconvenience, but it's something that you don't account for. Well, at least I don't. Run this down till it's just about flush. It's flush. So now we're going to come in with our hammer and just give it a smack. Really? That should have got it. Yeah, that got it. Cool. Put a little bit of downward pressure on it sometimes. Ooh. So you want it to stick. So now we're just gonna come in with our hammer and lightly tap the tie rods out, being a little bit stubborn. Like that. And now we are approaching the point where we are going to be hanging up our struts. Obviously, this is not essential. You can do this by yourself. One hand, I will do it on the other side. Just, it's on that bleeder. Just want to make our lives as easy as possible here. At least slip it. Actually, maybe. On this side. I'm just going to push this axle out. The CV boot should collapse to an extent. Okay, you're going to be stubborn. Well, the CV boot definitely did collapse. Because it's coming out. I'm going to go ahead and grab a head blow hammer, smack on this end of the axle. A little bit different of an outcome than I anticipated. Hope it doesn't do it on the other end. Okay. Slip right out. Kind of. Yep, it did. I know the strategy. It's not the traditional way of them coming out, but they will come out that way sometimes. So, not necessary, but I will be putting these axles in from which way they came. Make life super simple. Now we're going to go ahead and go straight for the big ratchet. No, I do need a 17. Yeah. Wow. Here. Just gonna go ahead and get these all broken loose with a ratchet. And then I will be going over using a right angle impact driver to pull them all out. Got some good battery life left to her. We're going to take a 17 swivel socket, go in here, and just rip them out. So we're going to completely pull out these brackets that contain the lower diff and hold it in place, because there are two more bolts on top of the differential that hold it elevated. We're about to get to the pump. Now, take a big, well, not a big extension, but a 1/2 inch extension with a 19 millimeter. I'm just gonna, or a 17 millimeter, sorry. Go in and just roll out. The nice thing about doing the diff in a Yamaha wrench, you put an open end here, and the bumper will retain that wrench, just so you get 2 free hands to do as you please. Should be about right there. I think I just hit it. Once you get the 2 top bolts out, don't really have to worry all that much. But what we do have to worry about once the 2 top bolts are out are getting the diff out from underneath. So the differential on an RMAX 1000, 2-seater or 4-seater, comes out of the bottom of the skid plate, or of the pan, I guess you would call it. The floor pan. Take something nice and long, stick it through. Just swung forward a ton. Something that we did want to see. Just when we go into this, make sure that before you start swinging your diff around, that you are checking to make sure that you pulled the rubber protector between the yoke of the drive shaft and the drive shaft itself. Just to make sure that you're not pulling the drive shaft out from the parking brake rotor or the transmission that is under your center console. Keep it simple. There's going to be an electrical connector underneath of the differential and a vent line. Make sure you keep track of both of these, and make sure that whenever you go to put your new diff in, or your replaced diff, whatever you've done, that you keep your electrical connector off to the side as well as your vent line. Going to be one more. $17. Go the same route that we went last time. And once you're very, very close to dropping those, here, right angle. All of our parts and tools. So now we're going to come in here with our screwdriver and disconnect this electrical line. Just go underneath of it. Make sure you push the clip in. Go underneath of it and kind of just twist it sideways on one side, go to the other side, hit the middle, and that should come right off. We're about to get to the fun part, which is dropping the diff out. Push it off to the side here. Now, whenever you're going to go pull a differential out of an RMAX, just drop this bolt. It's going to fall. It's going to be safe. There's nothing you have to worry about, like, at all with it falling. It comes out one way, one very certain way. So looking at it from the front side, the diff is going to be rotated 90 degrees to the left, and kind of the front bolt hole in the diff, this big bar, is going to catch inside the edge of the pan.